Hello, Algebra 2. Welcome. This is Mr. Howell Teaches from his garage. So welcome to my garage, and here goes a lesson. Today I'm going to teach you, or review really with you, a little bit about the quadratic formula. It's a very important formula you're going to see a lot in the SATs, so I wanted to make sure you guys are familiar with it, and we'll start off with our first video lesson with something we've kind of already seen, and it'll be a little bit of a review, so it'll be easy transition for us to move in and then do some new material as we move forward. So the quadratic formula. The quadratic formula has to do with quadratic equations. Quadratic equations are equations in the form like this: ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. They're quadratic because they have that x squared term and an x term and that constant term. Sometimes those terms are missing, and then those coefficients would be 0. But basically we have to make sure our equation is set equal to 0 first. So step 1, I'll put it over here, set equation equal to 0. You're going to see sometimes that's not the case, sometimes it is. Let's jump right in and I'll show you what we mean by identify that A, identify that B, and identify that C value. You're going to have a worksheet to do. It's about 16 problems. I'll do a couple with you. I'll start off with number 1 on the worksheet. It looks like this. V squared plus 2v minus 8 equals 0. This equation is already set equal to 0, so step 1 is done for us. Later on in the worksheet, you'll have to actually do that. Step 2 for these problems is identify A, B, and C. And again, that means from the standard form, this is standard form, meaning that your quadratic formula is already set equal to 0. The 0 is over there by itself, and everything else is on this side. You have your A, your B, and your C right here. We're going to grab those. In this case, the number in front of the V squared is really a 1, so our A is a 1. I like to write this over here. It's like our key or our legend. Our B is our positive 2, and our C in this case is actually a negative 8. I use those values and I plug them into the quadratic formula. The quadratic formula looks like this. You guys have seen this before. I'm going to do a little bit with it right here. Make sure we're still running. Negative b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So we remember we have to plug in for that b. It's going to be a 2. 2 is going to go in there for b also. Then you have a and c is also going to plug in right there, and you have to plug in a again. So there's actually 5 different locations you're going to be plugging in for variables. In this case, I sometimes do this. You guys have seen me do this. I rewrite the whole quadratic formula, but I put parentheses in where those variables are. So the b is going to go in there, the b is going to go in there, the a is right here next to the 4, the c is going to plug in there, and the a is down here. So this is basically the idea of the quadratic formula. You use this every time. You're just going to use your new numbers and plug them in here. So the b value, that's why I have this little legend or this little key I identified, and it's real easy to plug them in. The b value is going to be the 2 right there. It's actually a negative 2 now. The b value goes in here again, and then the a and the c, it's a 1 and a negative 8 go in there. And down here is the a again, which is a 1. So step 3, we just did it, was plug in. Whoop. Plug in A, B, and C. Don't have any eraser up here, so you guys are getting the typos also. Next step is going to be simplify underneath the square root. Simplify under the square root. So I keep the negative 2 here. You can drop the parentheses. It's a negative 2 plus or minus. I do have the square root still. 2 squared is going to be a 4. It's 2 times 2. And then I have a negative 4 times 1 times negative 8. So really it's a negative 4 times negative 8. Think about that as positive 32. All over underneath is 2 times 1 is 2. So we're kind of simplifying everything as we go, but really we're focusing on simplifying underneath the square root. I'm not done under there yet. I'm still going to make that a negative 2 plus or minus square root of 36 all over 2, right? And then we start to separate this plus or minus. That's going to be a 6. Square root of 36 is 6. So right now I have this. I have negative 2 plus or minus 6 over 2. Step 5, if you want to write that in your notebooks, write as 2 answers. And what that means is this is going to separate. I'm going to write one there and one here. One uses the plus sign and one uses the minus sign. So I'll start off with the plus sign, negative 2 plus 6 over 2. And the other answer is going to use the minus sign of this plus or minus. So negative 2 minus 2. Sorry, negative 2 minus 6 over 2. There it is. These are going to be our 2 answers to our quadratic equation. X squared equations have 2 answers or 2 roots usually. We'll talk about the discriminant and having 1 answer or 2 imaginary answers next video lesson. So we'll get to that, but these are pretty much straightforward, most of them anyway. So negative 2 plus 6 is going to be 4 over 2, and we know 4 divided by 2 is 2, so that's one of our answers. Here we have negative 2 minus 6 is going to be a negative 8 over 2. That's going to be a negative 4. That's our other answer. Just checking up here, that looks good. 2 and negative 4, we can write that like this. In the set notation, 2 and negative 4 are both those answers. Or you could say 2 or negative 4. This is the way I'd like to see you write your answer. This is the way you'll see your answer on the SAT for these types of questions. So what I would do is focus on this and understand that the quadratic formula is right here. You can identify that online, search it on Google if you have to, and have that written down. But what I'll expect you to do is identify these numbers and do all this work to get full credit. You got to plug them in, you got to show me the simplification, you got to break it apart, and then you got to get down to a final answer if you want full credit. If you just come at me and say the answer to number 1 is 2 and negative 4, you're not going to get full credit because I know you can find the answers. I know the answers. I'm actually giving them to you on the worksheet. So you'll have to show me all this work in order to get your credit for 1 through 16. I just did number 1. Let's take a look at another one. If you need more help with this, you can come on Thursday and ask me some questions, show me the work you've done, get some credit, and things like that. Let's do one that doesn't come out to even numbers. Let's do number 15. So jump into the end of the problem a little bit. I'm going to still put negative b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. This is what we're focusing on with this lesson. We've already done it, but there it is. Number 15 looks like this. It's a little bit odd. 14m squared plus 1 equals 6m squared plus 7m, I believe. Step 1, if you remember, was set the equation equal to 0. And this equation is not set equal to 0. Here's our equal sign. We want to basically get these 2 terms over to the other side and then leave a 0 on that right side. So in order to do that, I need to subtract 6m from both sides. I'm going to subtract that from this. It's actually 6m squared. To get that to cancel out, and 14 minus 6 is 8m squared. I'm going to be subtracting 7m. I got to put that right in here, minus 7m, because I want the m squared, then the m, then the constant, which is still positive 1. And then what's left over here is nothing. So I've moved both these terms over. The 6m squared combined with the 14m squared. The 7m turned into negative 7m and came over here. It's here in the middle. So they're in standard form. Remember, again, standard form, we had the x squared, and then the x term, and then the constant term, equal sign, and then 0. That's what I got now. Even though it's an m or an x or a v, doesn't matter what the letter is, we're still trying to solve a quadratic equation here, a squared equation. My a term is 8, my b term is negative 7, my c term is 1. I'm going to write that. Plug those numbers into here. I'll tell you, I do this negative, I put the parentheses for the b, I put plus or minus, I got the square root, I got b squared minus the 4 is always there, and then an a, and then the c, and then the 2, and then the a. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different places I need to plug in. And I use the formula to help me figure out what they are. I have my key or my legend right here to help me do that. The b is actually a negative 7. Here's a negative 7 is inside, and then look, another b here is a negative 7, but we're going to square that, so that's going to turn positive. And then the a and the c is 8, and a 1 coming from right here. On the bottom, 2 times a is 2 times 8. interesting big number in the bottom. Negative 7 to positive 7, plus or minus square root. This is a negative 7 times negative 7 is going to be a 49. Minus 32 times 1 is 32, so 49 minus 32, that's all it's underneath the square root over 16. We get down to 7 plus or minus 49 minus 32 is going to be 17, I believe. Square root still of 17 over 16. I say split it up into two answers, so you know this is really 7 plus square root of 17. That's not a perfect square, so it's not going to reduce like the previous one was 36. Turned into a 6. This one's the square root of 17. Square root of 16 is 4. Square root of 25 is 5, but this 17 is right in the middle there, 4.1 or so. This is all over 16, that whole thing written just with a plus sign. Now this whole thing written just with a minus sign, 7 minus square root of 17 over 16. So this is an answer, and this is an answer. The way you might see it, and the answer key is 7 plus square root of 17 over 16, comma, 7 minus square root of 17 over 16, and that. If I would have said, look at this crazy answer at the beginning, and he said, you know, this is what we're going to get, you would have said, no, we can't get that. I don't understand how to get that. But this is how we do it. We're breaking our answer down. This is not a perfect square, so we keep our square root, and we end up with these two separate answers. Again, you'll have to get this legend. You'll have to be able to do all this work. Show me the final answers. We use these brackets, little brackets here to show a set of answers, two separate answers, one plus and one minus. The final part. So that's the basic idea of it. Next week we're going to talk about the discriminant. So I'll look at this, just this b squared minus 4ac, and we'll talk about two real answers. Getting one answer if that thing is 0, or if that ends up being a negative number underneath there, we start getting into that complex or imaginary numbers again, so we might need a quick review on that. But tune in on Thursday at the Google Classroom link. We'll go over to the Google Hangouts and we'll have a meet. And we'll have a little video chat. You can show me your work, get some credit, and I'll answer any questions you have at that point. So hopefully it was good to see me. I hope to see you on Thursday, and thank you for tuning in. See you guys.